Hello, everyone. So I would like to welcome everyone to the fifth session in the Staying Well and Calm series. So my name is Kate Gawlik, and I'm going to be leading the webinar this week, discussing physical distancing and loneliness and how we are going to stay socially connected through this. All right, so let's review just a little bit from last week. So how did you do working on your sleep? Did you try to keep a daytime routine? So keeping, more of a consistent schedule and limiting your daytime naps. Did you work on a nighttime routine by limiting your exposure to bright lights, avoiding caffeine and alcohol? Did you write down your thoughts and set them aside for the night? Or did you work on your sleep hygiene? So turning off your electronics, getting out of bed for 20 minutes if you needed to, and keeping your bedroom at a comfortable temperature. Whatever it was that you did, try to continue to practice these things going forward. All right, so now let's talk about physical distancing and loneliness and ways to stay connected. So I do feel like this webinar is timely, right? So our initial panic phase, I think, is lessening a little bit. The weather is starting to get a little bit warmer, and I don't know about you, but I can almost feel the unrest, that people are feeling. It's like palpable. So we know, though, from past research on previous pandemics that physical distancing is incredibly impactful, right, when it comes to containing the spread of diseases. But, the problem with all of this is that humans are social creatures, right? So, even the most introverted among us really crave that social interaction. We weren't meant to spend our days alone. And this is really supported, by evidence. So there's a lot of evidence out there about the detrimental effects of social isolation. So research has linked social isolation and loneliness to higher risks for a variety of physical and mental conditions. So I have, on the slide, I have depression, cognitive decline, and dementia listed, but social isolation has been linked to higher risk for many other disease states. So high blood pressure, heart disease, obesity, a weakened immune system, Alzheimer's, anxiety, increased inflammation, that's just some of them. And people who unexpectedly find themselves alone are actually at a higher risk for this too. So this is likely, categorizing all of us at this point. But we do know, go back one more. Okay. And the other thing is that it's been linked to, is really when we look at the evidence, premature mortality. So one study even found it was as harmful as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. And it can be more harmful even than obesity. So the research is really supportive of that. I even found, this study that looked at people who actually did not experience social isolation, but they anticipated a future of social isolation. And what they found is that it actually impaired the executive functioning in their brain. So even though a lot of their routine mental abilities weren't affected, it actually impaired that higher executive functioning related to things like food consumption and social interactions. So the people tended to eat more unhealthy food. And interestingly, too, it also increased aggressive behaviors in people. So I don't know if this sounds like any of you right now, but, this is possibly, what you're feeling, and it's linked to a lot of this evidence that's out there. Okay, so enough about that. Let's talk some about the health benefits of socializing, right? Let's focus on those positive things. So we know that people who engage in meaningful and productive activities with others, they tend to have better physical health. They also have better mental health, and they have lower risks of acquiring certain diseases. The other things that it can do is it can improve things like problem solving, and it can inspire creativity, and it may help you to live longer too. So these social activities seem to help people maintain their well-being and their sense of purpose. So being social is really, really, really important to your health. All right, so let's talk now about social distancing versus physical distancing, right? Because our words matter a lot. So when we say social distancing, this is often implying that we should stop socializing, right? Whereas if you say physical distancing, this means you stop being physically close, but you can still remain social. So let's all try to practice physical distancing in lieu of social distancing, because there is absolutely no reason that we can't continue to be social throughout this time. And as the previous slide discussed, for our health, we have to continue to socialize and to be there for each other. So another term I just wanted to discuss briefly too is loneliness. We really need to look to kind of reframe this idea as well, right? So when I went and I Googled loneliness, I was trying to find a picture of loneliness, right? And so the picture that came up was the girl on the left. And you can see this girl, and she just looks sad and she looks depressed, right? So I think of loneliness as this word we hear a lot, and it's an emotion, right? It's an emotion word, and it's kind of filled with this sense of terror and desolation, right? But then, ironically, when I Googled solitude, the picture on the right came up. So, when you see this girl, it actually could be the same girl, right? She looks almost the same. But this girl on the right, she looks peaceful and she looks content and she looks happy. So these words are very similar, but they convey very different meanings. So, the primal answer, right, to loneliness has always been in our roots, this ability to be at peace with oneself. But this is very rarely what we see, in our world today. So by reframing our loneliness to solitude, we can actually change the way that we're perceiving this time, to ourselves. Okay, so now on to, how do we stay connected, right? So the first thing that's always important is to practice prevention, from this feeling of loneliness and social isolation. So by having a plan, that really can help mitigate some of these effects, right? So this is doing things like having regularly scheduled meetings or phone calls with family or friends, and to really put those onto your calendar and to stick with those things. If you're feeling lonely, reach out to someone. Develop a plan so you know in advance what you're going to do if you're feeling lonely or isolated. The next thing we need to remember is that it's okay for us to continue to make small talk with others and with strangers. I think we all have a greater appreciation now for the term avoid it like the plague, right? Like avoid it like the coronavirus, right? But we don't need to avoid each other. We just need to stay further apart while we talk. I already feel like I walk, and I see people, and, people are going out of their way to avoid other people. And we don't want our everyday, these kind exchanges that we have with other people to go away. So it's still really, really important that we continue to make small talk. All right. So next, tell yourself that you're going to call a family or friend every day. So whatever the day is, you will have that even hopefully scheduled. But this will help both them and it will help you. So really, this is a win-win situation. And we are so lucky that we live, in this time where we have the age of technology. And we have access to all of these virtual platforms, Zoom and Google Hangouts, FaceTime, Skype. All of these things are available for use. And, many of them offer free accounts. And if you work at OSU, you likely have one too. So another thing you may want to consider is to stop text messaging and just start calling everyone. Um, you can either use the phone or use one of these virtual platforms. And this is important too, I think, even, for younger kids, the younger generation, right? Messenger Kids is a very safe platform. I have an 8-year-old daughter, and she started having these short play dates with her friends this way. And I came into her room the other day, and she was, she had her little iPad set up, and I could see her friend, and they were both playing with Play-Doh and then showing each other their creations. So this isn't ideal, right? But it's still allowing that connection to take place. So I thought, it's important also for our younger kids and our younger generation to do that as well. And then this also, I thought, was a really good picture of this group of neighbors who are having a happy hour. And they're doing it in their 6 feet of distance, right? So this is kind of a model that you can use. This probably isn't possible with kids, right? Because I don't think they could stay in their circles very well. But with adults, we can adhere to this 6 feet between people. So this is just another idea of how people are getting creative and making the guidelines work for them to stay socially connected. All right, so now let's talk about the people who are in your home with you. So whoever that is, your kids, your significant others, your parents. And now that we are like over 50 days, right, into our stay-at-home orders, you may be thinking, okay, we've had a lot of family bonding time, but hopefully you can use some of this time to kind of rebuild and reconnect, in your relationships. We're also busy, we have this constant influx of activities and events, whether, they're for ourselves or others. But now, we've been given this gift of time. And this is likely never time that we're going to get again. And so for as hard and exhausting as this is, and, I can 100% say that. I have 4 kids all under the age of 8, so it's pretty exhausting. But there is something very magical, in all of it, if you can stop for 5 minutes and just try to see it. On that note, I also wanted to just briefly discuss the power of human touch. So this has been very well studied in infants and children and the elderly, and this is even seen across species, so in animals, but human touch can cause the secretion of oxytocin. And oxytocin is a very powerful hormone that plays a role in social bonding. So you may have heard of it referred to as the love hormone. But it also reduces stress and pain, and it can increase trust and security, and it also enhances immune function. So you may be thinking, oh, I have teenagers, like they don't even, want me to touch them in the slightest way, but even just, a gentle touch on the arm or kind of ruffling their hair, can promote some of these things and improve their well-being. And I will say, though, too, individual and cultural preferences also should be considered with this, but it can be very powerful for human connection. Okay, so another factor to think about, is shifting our personal and family expectations. So it's not realistic to expect people to be performing at their peak, right? When so many people are still adapting to these changes that are going on and the technology pieces and, having multiple kids at home, now is not the time for us to demand perfection, both from yourself or from others. And I mention this because expecting these high expectations can ultimately be damaging, to our social connectedness and relationships. So it's just really important right now to be kind to yourself and to others. We're not superhumans. We never truly know, what somebody else is dealing with too right now. So it's so important to make sure we remember that. All right, so let's shift just a little and talk about now the importance of community. So our communities are doing so many wonderful and creative things right now to stay connected. It's so amazing to see how people are pulling together. That there are so many local opportunities. So local businesses and community centers are offering lots of programming now, from the arts to karate to early childhood learning opportunities. So these are just some of the things that I've seen. That people are caroling and they're having porch concerts, and they're doing these scavenger hunts around their neighborhoods. Another cool thing is I've seen people decorating their houses. There's this movement with the hearts. So, it asks people to make then and put up hearts in their windows to show our connectedness through all this. I've also seen some similar movements to support healthcare workers, and our essential personnel out there. So there's also been a lot of these car parades to celebrate. So whether it's a birthday or another special day, it's a really great way to show support and connectedness while distancing. I also just saw something about a talent show coming through for our community. So that's also something very fun that a community could put together. So at this point too, this bullet is probably very important. So just finding new and different ways to interact with others. So hopefully, you've already been doing the FaceTime calls, and, you're kind of at that point where things are just starting to get a little bit boring, right? So hopefully there's some new things that you can try. So the happy hour, it's back. It used to be very big in the past, but it seemed to kind of fade when we had our technology boom, and it seems like it's back again, but virtual style. So get some friends, some colleagues, and everybody have your 5 o'clock drink, or you can go grab a book. A lot of these clubs that are out there can still take place online. So whether it's a book club or a knitting club, whatever it is, just create it in a virtual format or move it to a virtual format. There are also a lot of online gaming platforms where you can play board games, or you can play card games with other people through the internet. After this webinar, I'm going to be posting a list of all these resources from that I've discussed, within this webinar. And so I'll include some of these sites for you guys. But most classes out there now are live streaming. So pretty much anything from yoga to piano, you name it, somebody is probably out there live streaming it. All right, so we already discussed our board games, Netflix parties. I'm sure you've heard of those too. Those are, really big, where you can get friends, family, colleagues, and do a movie night with everybody. So that's something else you might want to try. Okay. So, despite us all being apart, it's still also really important that we help each other. So we can still support others with service opportunities. So again, I'll put together that resource for you guys, but there will be a link in there that will provide different ways that you can support your community and nonprofits through virtual service opportunities, which I thought was really cool. I also found this cute little way that you can help others. So this can be left at like a neighbor's house or something like that. But there are, just still so many ways that we can help other people from a distance, right? So, and then this kind of leads into this opportunity. So this opportunity to practice some random acts of kindness. So both kids and adults can do these small things to make other people's day a little bit brighter. And this can be as easy as supporting, local business, small business, to leaving kindness rocks around for people or around your community, or leaving random kind notes for neighbors, or, maybe somebody elderly in your community. Okay, and then the last thing, so we're at number 10 on my list, And I think this one's really important too, that, it's okay to be vulnerable. Meaning, you need to reach out to others and let them know how you're feeling, let them know what you need. Everyone needs a little more support at times, and that's really okay. You can only get that support, though, if you let others know that you need it. This isn't the time, to suffer in silence. And there are also a lot of online support groups right now for depression, anxiety. I've even seen them now for dealing with COVID specifically. So I'll include these on that resource page. There are also many community and faith-based organizations that can offer support too. I listed social media here. When used in small doses, this can be really great, especially for older adults, to connect them with people, let them know what family members and friends are doing. Here, I always think specifically of people in nursing homes. If they can get access to something like that, that can really, really be helpful to them. And if you're feeling like you need more support, there are all group and one-on-one counseling that's still available virtually too. And I also just wanted to say, if you're feeling that you're going to hurt yourself, the National Suicide Prevention Line, I have it listed, but they're available 24/7. So 1-800-273-TALK. And that will also be part of my resources. Okay, so lastly, through all of this, it's also very important to remember that you need to stay connected to you. Continue to do the things that you love. You don't need to stop doing those things. So whatever it is, keep doing it. Don't stop because of all of this. And remember that we're all in this together, and in fact, there's probably never been a time in history where the entire world has been so connected by this common thread. So I feel like there's a lot of comfort, in that you're not alone through all of this. And just kind of to start wrapping up, I wanted to show this slide, and I'll just give you a minute to kind of look at it. I know there's a lot on it. But, I think it's really important to ask yourself who you want to be during all this. And if you're finding yourself kind of stuck in that fear zone, that's okay, but try to move into the learning zone. And if you feel like you're in that learning zone, then look to move more into the growth zone. So there is opportunity in all things, right? If we can try and remain positive and remain connected together, we can make it through this. And, I've seen this circulating the internet, and I find it very comforting. And so I wanted to end with this. And the people stayed home and read books and listened and rested and exercised and made art and played games and learned new ways of being and were still and listened more deeply. Some meditated, some prayed, some danced, some met their shadows, and the people began to think differently, and the people healed. And in the absence of people living in ignorant, dangerous, mindless, and heartless ways, the earth began to heal. And when the danger passed and the people joined together again, they grieved their losses and made new choices, dreamed new dreams, and created new ways to live and heal the earth fully as they had been healed. Okay, so my challenge for you for this week is to reach out to somebody new and to try to practice a random act of kindness. Okay, and here is our virtual group hug for 2020. I really enjoyed giving this webinar today, and I want to give a special thanks to the Office of the Chief Wellness Officer and Buckeye Wellness, and we really would appreciate your feedback on this webinar too. Like I said, I will be posting the resources for today and answering questions in just a minute, but just as a reminder too, next week Dr. Jackie Hoying is going to be doing another great webinar called Building Resiliency Skills, a Necessity in the COVID-19 Epidemic. And here are just some more resources from one of our partners at Everyday Health. Okay, so we have about 5 minutes for questions.
Okay, I'll go ahead and read you a few questions. We had some really good ones popping up in here, and a lot of people were upvoting them. So one of the first ones we had, and this was earlier on in the presentation, was, is the data on social interaction different for introverts versus extroverts?
Yes, yeah, that's a good point. So introverts still show that they gain the benefits, the social interaction benefits, when they actually do interact. They don't seek it out as much, but they need it just as much. It's probably just with a smaller circle and with the right people versus a larger circle.
Okay, another one. One person asks, can you address Zoom fatigue? It seems like a lot of folks are getting burned out with all the Zoom meetings lately, especially when we consider, hosting virtual happy hours and connecting with Zoom as well as doing our work that way.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I've been hearing this from all sides. And this is where, if there's a possibility to change things up, that's where, I would take that opportunity. So versus doing a virtual Zoom happy hour, maybe you could try the social distancing or the physical distancing happy hour, where everybody gets together if that's possible. It's not always going to be possible, but in certain circumstances, you could definitely make something like that work. But the Zoom fatigue is an absolute issue for a lot of people right now. Okay, next question.
Sure. How do you balance shifting expectations with all of the additional projects put on the plate? I am actually working more hours while home than I was when I was at work. Increased demands for remaining connected with constituents as well as transitioning our processes to digital.
I know, and this is hard too. And I guess I don't have a great answer for that. I mean, other than I think everyone needs to know their limitations and when to vocalize their limitations. And I also think that hopefully once this initial bump, the panic and everything kind of evens out a little bit more, hopefully those workloads will kind of even out along with that. But I do empathize, and I would say if those individuals can reach out, and know their limitations. And I think at this point, that message is especially important for people like managers to understand, that this is not the time where we're going to be at our peak performance. And many of us are getting additional workload.
Okay. One person asks, I have a 14-year-old who's going into the 9th grade that has no social media because I hear how dangerous it is. Now she's pretty much cut off from school. Would allowing social media be acceptable? My 11-year-old is really isolated as well. It has been very hard on the kids.
Oh my gosh, I know. And I just feel for these kids so much. I think that's up to every parent, and the decision needs to lie with the parent. But so there are a lot of platforms out there that parents have more control, like I referenced the Messenger Kids. So as the parent, I decide who is the person and who they can be friends with. So that choice lies up to me. And my plan too is once this is all done, then I'm going to stop that. I think that they need that right now. Another way I guess you could get around if you didn't want them to do the social media is to allow them to use your phone to do FaceTime and things like that. But I think that's every parent's choice. But I do think that we need to be giving our kids an outlet to other kids right now. It's just so important to them. Okay. Any other questions?
Sure. A couple more. We'll do a couple more, like 2 more minutes.
Okay.
How does one translate this info to parents in facilities or assisted living that are locked down? Phone calls are insufficient, and her example is my 90-year-old mother has no electronic devices.
Mm-hmm. So that could be a little bit trickier. I think if you wanted to give them access to that, you would probably have to arrange that with the staff or the facility. And you'd probably have to, have the phone to give them. And that would be contingent also on the staff willing to train them on how to use it. I don't know, everybody's a little different with how quickly they pick things up, but if it's something as simple as FaceTime, that's really inserting a couple people's numbers in and showing them how to, push the FaceTime button. So I think that if in the right facility, with the right individual, that could be a very effective method to do it. And I would hope that these facilities would be helpful and help you to get them that access. Uh, Again, because my heart just goes out to those individuals. But that would be, my best advice on that.